Hey, what's up, y'all? It's an interruption. We're in the 11th episode of CNS IG Live with Positive Black Women. For some reason, with technology, it just ended. So hopefully, Kantara is still on here so we can restart this live. She was about to say some amazing things. So I'm just waiting for her to log back in. I am not for sure why it ended, but hey, I am by the rain, so we never know why these things happen. But my name is Naisha Stone. This is Carvin Stone, your weekly source of positive news. And thank you so much to everyone that's joining me. And I'm about to add her in. Thank y'all so much. I really, really appreciate y'all. It was raining where I am right now, but it stopped. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It was like
That
the
was,
live ended, and I was like, "What? Y'all hating?" Like,
I feel like that was the universe telling me to chill the F out. It's totally fine. Like, let's go.
I was like, "No, it didn't." But here we are live. So let's rewind it real quick. My name
Okay.
is Naisha Stone, and we're on the 11th episode of CNS IG Live with Positive Black Women. It may look like we just started this, but we about 10 minutes actually into the interview. But Instagram was hating a little bit. Maybe it's the weather, the Wi-Fi. I don't know, but it cut us off. So we're here with Kantara Souffrant, and she is the curator of community dialogue at the Milwaukee Art Museum. And so I want to get back into our conversation about being a curator and just, going back into, what we were talking about. I'm sorry that happened, but if you would like to continue.
It's no problem, Naisha. I totally get it. So you asked me a really good question and it actually gave me more time to think because you're like, how do I hold on to me and my personhood while working in this space that a lot of Black people may not feel comfortable stepping into? And I totally get that. And I want to go back to what I said before, which is that I came to know the Milwaukee Art Museum through this amazing Haitian art collection. So, like my first understanding of it was like, this is a place that has Black art and that represents me and my culture and my value. So I think I always had that in mind, but I also know that it's like this beautiful space. It's literally physically all white. It's downtown. Like there's like so many reasons why people who are Black and who grew up like me, like Black, poor, immigrant, like low income first generation, might not feel comfortable traveling down there because you don't know who is going to be policing your body and your community and your people. And so I think part part of part of how I hold my center is always remembering my values and like my people. And like and when I say my people, I mean like one of the reasons why I started doing this work was because I was thinking about what are some of the places where I could work and I could bring my grandma, who was born
Oh,
and raised in Haiti and like didn't go to formal schooling, not literate in the full sense of the term, but like dope woman, so strong, like literally like ran a business on her own, like amazing leader and spirit. And I wanted to be in spaces where I felt like she would be honored and seen and witnessed and to cultivate those spaces too. And I think part of my value is always thinking about how do we make this space the most accessible space for all people and not assume that it is functioning the best way for all. And I think um, and also, I'm just like naturally a collaborator and connector, and I want to meet with people, and I always want to like bring people in. And so I'm always trying to snatch people and like do invitations. And sometimes those invitations come in the form of a block party that is free. So it's like, come get a taste, like don't worry about paying for anything out of pocket. Come check it out. I also try to be humble enough to get feedback from folks. So like part of why the block party to me like was able to function was because we have an amazing community advisory group that is full of amazing, brilliant people from across the city who was like, if you're gonna do this, it needs to reflect the Black community and it needs to have like these points. So being able to hear folks too, so that when folks see something like a block party, they know that it's not just a white institution that's trying to co-opt things. Like there's actually like Black heart, Black spirit, intentionality, and like folks really trying to do the work to create more spaces where Black folks can gather and feel witnessed and seen. Like I I just want to create spaces where I can hang out and feel free and have my daughter feel free.
See, I love that because I like the art museum. I like the art that's in there. I like how it changes, but you kind of, you gotta make yourself comfortable and in those type of environments. And honestly, most of the museums around the country, like they're kind of built to not have us. So like how do we make museums more comfortable for us? Like just from like a design perspective or just an art perspective. But like when you walk into these type of like buildings, you can just feel sometimes like, wait a minute, this don't feel like, like this welcomes to me. So like what can they do like on the beginning side to make sure that they're including people like us?
Oh, okay. So I heard your question two different ways. One was like I heard you asking like what can we as Black people do to make ourselves feel comfortable in museums? And I was like, I don't know if we
Oh, no,
need to
no,
do
no, no, no,
anything.
no,
Okay.
no,
I was like
no.
I mean maybe. Uh but I hear you talking about what can museums do. I think that and this is why I really love your platform because I think part of it is like I feel like so much of the work happens before people even step in the door. So a lot of what I've been trying to do is also connecting with like Black media and outlets like you and to like so that people see my face because I feel like if you don't see other Black faces there,
Mhm.
you may be quick to shut down and go, there's nothing here for me. Um, so I think one, more marketing that really amplifies Black voices and Black spaces. And I'm saying Black, but I also feel like we've been doing that work across BIPOC communities more broadly. But I always like center Blackness because I feel like when Black people are free, everyone else is free. So that's where I'm starting. So I feel like one, like literally getting the word out and going to meet people. I know that it I know that when people think about coming to the art museum, they're coming like just come through our doors, but I think so much of the work is actually about going and being in communities and like just showing up as an advocate and as an ally. Like this is big. I'm staying home tomorrow because I live in Bronzeville and there are hella things that I need to hit up in my area, and like ABHM is one of my spaces in the city and I try to amplify them whenever I can. So I think part of it is like going out and meeting people where they are. It is creating opportunities where you can connect for free and for low cost. And also, I think that one of my favorite spaces at the art museum is our Cole's art studio. Like I love that space, and I also love our Cole's art mobile. And I will say our Cole's art mobile is like one of the arms that is always out in communities. So they're going to be at Bronzeville week, I think this Saturday, and just making art with children and their families. And I think I love that space because that space is really about like there is something that happens when you just make art and you're not worried about whether or not it looks good. And I get to see the ways that like my daughter who's 4 or our daughter who's 4 like goes in there, she like owns that space. She's like, yep, give me that paper, give me that paint, I'm ready. And I get to see the ways in which parents and guardians are working with their kids there. And there's something about that space and the energy of the space, which is just exactly that's it. That's what we're aiming for. That sense of like this is here, this is for you, you can do no wrong here. So I think that's part of it too. So one is like invitations and letting people see other Black faces and stories and like really connecting and sharing out those BIPOC stories so that folks know that you're going to see a reflection of yourself and you're going to see a window into another community that you didn't expect. Two is going out into other communities and like really just being an ally. And then three is just like creating those moments where people can experience creative freedom and expression.
I know, I love it. So I'm gonna get into the topic of being a working mom, and I'm gonna get into that topic in a second. But you brought up Bronzeville Week, and so I just want to highlight that there are Bronzeville neighborhoods, or just the name Bronzeville, around the country, and basically for the people that don't know, it's just it's our neighborhood specifically for Black communities. In Milwaukee, ours was torn apart from a freeway being built through it, and so it destroyed a lot of our Black businesses and a lot of our Black neighborhoods. So now, with the help of Alderwoman Malele Cogs, who I would say again and again and again, I love her. I don't care. Um, she has been able to, with the help of, Bronzeville, the bid, and just, the city and our community, been able to rebuild Bronzeville neighborhood, and not just the neighborhood, but the week itself. Is just to bring awareness to what the neighborhood means and its impact in the city. So if y'all are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or if you're in Wisconsin, make sure y'all go do something during Bronzeville week because it is still going on. So thank you for mentioning that. And also, they're also on August 27th. If you want to support the businesses on Center Street, August 27th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They are doing something. They have over like 100 businesses in their bid, so definitely go support them. You gotta plug stuff. You gotta plug stuff. All right. So you brought up having a daughter, and so did you? I gotta ask this question. Did you plan on having a kid? And the reason I ask that because always thinking about having a child, right? I got my business, but I'm scared. Like, do people plan that, or do we just come, or what the?
Girl,
How do y'all?
girl,
And wait, how do y'all manage it? Because I know that sounds crazy, but I'm like, I just don't understand. I really don't.
you're asking me some very personal questions on this one.
Ask me how you want.
No, so let me tell you, we got married July 14th, 2017. My daughter was born July 12th, 2018. So like 2 days within a year of us getting married. And I mentioned that because heck no, I did not plan that. Like we did not plan for her to like we did not plan the majority of our first year of marriage to be us like negotiating pregnancy and thinking about like, all right, what are the values from our families that we want to pass on? What are the legacies that we maybe want to break because they're not the healthiest, you know? So I would say she was not planned, but honestly, I cannot imagine my life without her for some of the reasons that I keep mentioning. When I'm thinking about the people who are really living to make Milwaukee better, it's people who are thinking about like my daughter's generation and her daughter's generation, like really the people who are thinking with vision enough that it's not about me and my lifetime. It's really about the people who are going to inherit that after us. So I think that if you are already thinking that way, then you are already thinking as a caregiver, a guardian, a parent, and it'll all work itself out. I feel like we are hell of messy. Not hell of messy. I'm sorry. I feel like you think you know what you're doing, and then you're like, oh my God, like, what is this? Um, but I go back to values again because I think that, some of my values are that like the ancestors never leave us, and like that also means that when I see my daughter, I'm like, you have an old spirit, and like also thank you for choosing me to be your parent. So I know that like she is an autonomous human and has her agency, and I think it's been really awesome to witness that come into being.
How do you
You
manage?
will figure it out. You will figure it out.
So how do you manage? For you personally, how do you manage being a curator at the Milwaukee Art Museum and then still making sure you're showing up and being a mom every time? Or how does that work for you?
I have the feeling that you and I are both workaholics and like and not and like in the way where like it feels good. Like it feels
It's so
good to
great.
like yeah, it feels great to like work and sweat and like feel like okay, I aim to do this and this today and I got this and that done and
Yeah.
that and I will say that I know that feeling well, and I think that being a parent has been so great for my boundary setting. Like, so between my first time working at the art museum, so from 2015 to 2018, I had no issue like staying until 8, like getting something done, because I'm like, I just need to do this like one little thing. But now I'm like, nope, like they're coming to pick me up at 4:45. Like I've been here since this time. I need to like plug out because I want to be able to show her what it means to love your job and your work, and also that she is important and deserving of my attention. And that means like it's reading time, or we're watching Shira together. You know what I mean? Like so I think that for me, she's been a great tool for boundary setting and for also like turning off, because I also think that part of my work ethic is tied to like first generation anxiety. Like I'm the first, like I am my parents and my grandparents' dreams made manifest. So there's like this guilt of wanting to like sustain that. And I think she allows me to like woosah and just be.
So I went to, have you ever heard of Earn Your Leisure?
No.
So they are a financial podcast. They're the number one financial podcast. Two black men, and they just held an annual their second annual Invest Fest. And so it's basically, it was held in Atlanta for the second year, and it's basically about getting, it's targeted towards black people, but it's for everyone. But it was basically like 12,000 black people learning about, you know, investing, financial literacy, and all that stuff. And so Steve Harvey, he was just like saying,
Yes, my husband knows them. He follows them. Yes, he literally was just talking about it this morning.
so I was there, and it was amazing. And just like some of the things that you were hitting on, as like, you know, Steve Harvey was saying, and it was just like, it's just so interesting. Just like, we're all so different, but we all kind of have like the similar things kind of going on, and it's just interesting to all like hear our different stories. And I'm like, you know, you look at a person and like people judge us like for like, you know, like what they see like on the outside, but no one knows like, oh, a curator, and you're the first person. And it's
Yeah.
like, it was so many things that we can do as black people, or just like as individuals, as women. And I think it's so cool, just like, just, and that's kind of like why I created this series, is just to give us a platform, because people see us, they're like, we're angry, or just this, we just want to be this way or this way. Like, no, we could be all different types of things. We don't have to just be like one type of thing. Is there anything you've learned about yourself through your job or your career, or through your path? I know there's like a kind of out there question.
No, it's not an out there question. It's a question that I have like, well, like I'm trying to figure out like how much do I want to share with you? Okay, so I think that you know, I took this job quite literally on a leap of faith. Like I had lots of doubts about whether or not I had all the skills that I needed to step into this role, which is a first time role and also a leadership role. But again, I told you, like, I'm a person who's like, the ancestors don't leave us. And like, I trust in faith in the universe, and faith in the universe and the ancestors were like, yep, do it. This is for you. And I was like, okay. So I think that, a lot of what I've been learning has been like, what are the skills that I already have and that like really help me to shine in this position? And what are the ways in which I need to grow, either as like growing in terms of trusting my intuition, or growing in terms of like, oh, you know what? Like, I am not media savvy. Literally, I emailed you last week. It was like, tell me how to do this Instagram live thing. Talk to me like I don't know how to use a computer. Like, do I do this on my laptop or on my phone? So it's like helping me to learn like skills that I don't know, and also to be brave enough to acknowledge that I don't know those skills, so I can reach out to people who I feel safe with and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you like help me? And then I also think the thing that it's helping me is to like connect with other Black women leaders in our cities as like mentors, because I'm someone who like, I like love to like go to someone who like is in a place that I want to be in and be like, what's your journey? Like, how'd you get here? What would you tell your like past self? And what else am I learning? I think I'm also learning, Naisha, like the importance of having like your tribe. Because there are days that are just like,
Mm-hmm.
I set out to do A, B, C, D, E. And I was like, and I got maybe half of A done, you know, like,
Oh my
or
God.
nothing.
Yeah, that's so irritating, right? When you literally like, hold on, wait. I just want to like, I ain't gonna show you everything, but like these have been here since like I'm like when I wrote them down on Monday, they were like solid, like they're not hard things I can't accomplish. But then a few hours come and that was something more important. That was the next
Yeah.
day and skip those things. Now it's the next day and it's like this is like, oh my God. And you're still thinking about those at night. I swear to God. Last night I was waiting and I was like, I gotta back up at like 11 o'clock at night. I went to bed early and I got up and I go to bed to like 1, 2 in the morning until I finished because I was in bed thinking about work and I'm like, okay, this you need help.
You need help. Oh, actually, let me back up. This is also like therapy. When I tell you I am a big advocate for therapy, because I also think that part of it, and you're in a public position, so you're like, can I mess up? Like, if I mess up, are people gonna be like, what's gonna happen? And I
Mhm.
think that part of stepping into this role, even before I took it, I was like, I need to get a therapist because I can't let imposter syndrome or my work ethic or all of these other things like eat away at me. So I think part of being in here was also like, what are the tools that I need to feel safe and whole and like the kind of human that I'd be proud for my daughter to witness, even if I'm having a bad day. You know, she's like, you know what, mommy's having a bad day, but she's calling Auntie Haiti or Auntie Marie, you know, like she's like reaching out to her community and she's not taking her like anger out on me, you know, like that's like tied to the patterns that I want to break. So I think I learned how to cultivate my tribe, which included like my therapist, who's a Black woman, who I'm like, yes, we are talking tomorrow at 3, and I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
I think that's interesting that you think so much about your child, or just about not even just about your child or being a mother, but just about the actions that you put out into the world. Because I'm 25, I'll be 26 at the end of the month, and I'm still like learning myself and still realizing that like some of the things that happen to your life are because you keep doing the same actions or because you keep putting out the same energies. So by you saying that, like, what am I really saying to my daughter? How is she seeing me when I react to stuff? And so those are things that I'm still learning within myself of like, wait a minute, I know why these situations are happening this way. Maybe if I switched up a little bit, maybe things would turn a little bit different. But that just made me think. That just made me think a little bit differently. Like when you said that.
Naisha, I just realized you asked me the question, like, did we plan for her? And my answer was no. But even before she came, like, I think years before I met my husband, like, the question I started asking myself was, how would I want my daughter to respond in this moment? And, like,
Hmm.
so I wasn't, and I'm mentioning that here because I think that part of it was, like, if I'm in a meeting, and something is happening and I feel something in my gut, but I'm like, is this the right thing to say? To go like, how would I want my daughter to act in this moment? And I'd say, I would want her to uphold her truth and to feel brave enough to like speak. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna speak. So I think so you say that made me think about how I didn't plan for her, but I was acting the
You
way
were
that I would
planning
want.
for her,
Yeah.
but planning for her, but planning for her.
Yes, exactly. But also in being able to get in that mindset, I felt like I was able to tap into like my inner self and to never let fear get in my way and to always try to think about like what's the most humane and graceful way to respond in this moment so that yeah my daughter's going to catch a lot of what I'm doing right now, and that means like I don't want her to necessarily feel like I'm prioritizing other people over her because so much of my job is about connecting and building relationships. And I take her to everything. She's at the openings at Five Points Gallery. She is up at the museum making noise. She is like, yeah, she's just yeah, I want her to know that like I this is how I feel about children, period. Like they should be incorporated into these spaces.
Yeah.
And if you're not building these spaces for children, especially for Black children in mind, then like what are you doing?
What do you? No, I agree. I bring my nephew Dante. Shout out to him. He just turned 7 on the ninth. Um,
Hey.
he's been a part of like Cornerstone, everything. He performs at mostly like all of our events, and so like since like 3, 4 years old, he's like singing, dancing, beatboxing. And so I think it's definitely very important to make sure that our young people, like as little as even 1 year old in a few months, know that they're important and that we see them and that we hear them.
Yeah.
Because I can remember being younger and like knowing I had a talent, but you feel like no one's watching me, no one understands, like no one knows, but there is someone in the room that understands. But it's if do they want to take that initiative to really give you that spotlight to make sure that talent, like flourishes. So I can see that you're a great mom. I see you glow when you talk about your daughter and
Oh,
her to these events. That's very important because now she probably already networking and don't even know that she's networking. So yeah, see,
girl,
look.
girl. But but I think that's also part of like what is the Milwaukee that I want to see and what are the values that I have. Like my parents are both from Haiti, so I grew up in a large Haitian community in New York and New Jersey, and so I had like cousins and aunties and uncles and all these people who like cared for me, you know what I mean? Um, and it was like you have your parents, but you also have a network of people who will guard you and discipline you and like teach you and like take on the responsibility of caring for you. And we have that with our blood kin here. But I also feel like in taking her to places, I'm also like, she's got like a network of people who she's like, oh, hey, Amy, hey, Diane, like, hey, Fatima, like these are her people. And that for me was part of building her community and like that intentionality.
In your bio, in our interview, and just a few other times I've just seen your name, it's about community and connecting and relationships. So, what are some key things to building a solid relationship, whether that's business, personal wise, or however you want to answer that?
I think that it takes a whole lot of time. I'm gonna keep going back to the question you had about lessons learning on the job. I think that it takes a whole lot of time to build relationships and to build trust, and I think that is something that both excites me and frustrates me on the job because that's not like something that you can check off a list, like, oh, I made a relationship with this person. No, that actually like it's like dating. Like it requires a few like points of contact. Uh, you know what I mean? A few like opportunities and getting to know each other. And also, like, I don't necessarily come in all the time with an agenda. Like, if anything, my agenda is like, I'm really excited about what you do. Could you just share that info with me? And then sometimes, like, you meet and there's like a synergy. You're like, oh, we both love this thing. Like, can we collaborate on that? But sometimes it's just like, oh man, I learned your life story and you learned a little bit about mine. And like, there's one more person in Milwaukee who I know is amazing and doing great work, and I can't wait to shout him out. Um, so I think that the relationship building, connecting takes a lot of time. I think that that's the one difference as a parent that I'm experiencing versus as a single person. As a single person, it was like I could be out until late connecting with people, but as a parent, I'm like, ooh, that starts at 9. Yeah. I'm like, I think I'll go to sleep because I will have just put my daughter to bed, but will she actually be sleeping? So I think the time of relationship building, because then it's also like people talk about networking, and networking can feel real transactional, like give me your card, I'm getting to know you, and like I'm gonna call you for a favor. But for me, I really think about it as cultivating relationships. So even between I first started at MAM from 2015 to 2018, like I said before. And I left between 2018 and I came back in 2021. But during that time, I was still like texting and keeping up with folks. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just like, oh, I'm thinking about you. Like, how are you? So I never felt like, and maybe it's because my family is in the Caribbean and all over. So I'm used to maintaining relationships with people from afar. But for me, it's like really like, taking the time, and if I'm thinking about someone, shooting them a text to let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you, or like setting up a time to like reconnect. And so that's, I think, the biggest part of my work is putting in the time for building relationships. And sometimes I don't think I always do that well, but that could also just be me being very hard on myself.
For one, you're being hard on yourself. Um, that's one thing I think about with business because you meet some great people. For example, like when we were on the phone, when we
Yeah.
interviewed, virtual interview, we connected like that. I'm like, I really like this person,
Yeah.
and so what's interesting is because like you meet these people, but and you want to build these relationships. You don't always want them to be transactional, but you have to be very careful on not always getting too personal with people because and it's like always finding out that line and making sure that, okay, it's a business side, it's a personal side, and sometimes there's that in between. And I'm still learning what the in between is, because sometimes you can connect well with a person, but it's like you only vibe on the business side, and so you don't want to go too much on the personal side. And so that's just something I think about, as I meet a lot of people, and as I interview people, like, this for me personally, people bring me into their lives a lot, and I get to know them. Okay, I kind of know you a little bit, but it's like, okay, wait a minute, you're here for a reason. And so it's, when a relationship is right, but sometimes you have to figure out, like, those relationships that matter, and those relationships that are real, and those that are not. So.
Yes.
I know that was a lot, Lily.
You like hit me in my spirit, but I also think, and this is why, hello, I love my therapist. I think that I have been too transparent in the past, like sharing too much of myself, and I think that maybe it's as I get older, I'm learning a little bit more about why boundaries are important. But if I use my daughter as an example, she's my teacher and I learned from her, and she's like shaped a lot of my behaviors now. That doesn't mean that everyone gets to meet my daughter. You know what I mean? That's like a privilege. So I think that is like the example. I think that as I cultivate my intuition, I also cultivate like, how much deeper do you get access to, like, and who are the people who I really like want to cry and bake bread with, and like I feel like they got me on my ugliest, messiest days, and who are the people who I'm like, I will tell you more than I'm fine, but I also like will keep it really business and professional. And I think that is I think you're right, especially in your line of business and relationship building, like that is the hard thing to navigate. And sometimes you're wrong. Like sometimes you just choose the people wrong. And that hurts.
It hurts so bad, because for me personally, I'm like, okay, where did I mess up? It's always, I immediately go to, well, where the heck did I mess up on? And whether they did something wrong or not, I always feel like guilty. That's what I meant to bring up earlier when I brought up Steve Harvey. You brought up being guilty. And the thing Steve Harvey brought up at Invest Fest is that we as a Black community, like when we're going towards success, we usually sometimes we have that guilt in us, and we have to get rid of that feeling. We have to get rid of feeling of guilty, whether it's let go of relationships, whether it's being more successful, whatever that may be, however, if it's benefiting us, we have to get rid of that, like that type of guiltiness. And I meant to bring that up earlier, but I went on like a tangent of something totally different. But that made me just remember, and I thought that was important, because you brought up a guilty, you brought up the word guilty, and it made me think of Steve Harvey, and just it's just that feeling. And I have that when it comes to relationships as well, because sometimes you have, like you said, sometimes they go wrong. And I feel like, what could I have done better to make this relationship better? Maybe a client didn't want to rehire me back on, or maybe a friend doesn't want to be friends anymore, and I have that guilty feeling. But if you did everything in the beginning right, then you don't necessarily have to have that feeling. And maybe sometimes you feel that as a mom, like you had to tell them, don't touch that, but then it's like, cry, and it's like.
First of all, I caught that message from Steve Harvey. Thank you. Right. Because I think that's also like tied to the idea of like success, and especially like Black women. I think that one, we work extra hard. I know we work extra hard to achieve everything that we want, but also there's like, do I want to go for this? Like, am I worthy of this? Like, do I have everything that I need? And then that's when you call up your person who's like, just go out with like the audacity of a mediocre white man. You know what I mean? Just like snatch it. But yeah, I think you're totally right. I have, speaking of being too transparent, I have a running list of like all of my exes and all of the things that I learned from those relationships.
Oh my God.
Yes, because I am a nerd. Like, I need to make everything a teachable moment. And so I actually, like what you just said made me think about how like I do that with programs too, right? Like, we do them, and then we have a reflection period, and it's like, well, what worked, what didn't, and what needs to be adapted for the next time we do it. And I feel like maybe that's the same thing with relationships too, or with clients. Like, what worked, what didn't, and like what needs to be adapted going forward. Like, ooh, you know what didn't work? Like, I came in too hard with like the personal information, and maybe like maybe next maybe next time I'll hold back.
That hey, my little sister Brianna is on. Hey, Brianna. But no, I feel you because sometimes I be like, I just met. So I am. So for me personally, I am just like craving like female like friendships, and so like as soon as like I get a female that's just like, oh, we could some would be friends. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, you have to slow down. You know, work into the friendship. But I'm just like so excited. Like I just want friends. But like you said, like it takes time. You have to work into it. Nothing comes like just like that. But wait, what?
Yes. I was gonna say, but also you will find those people who like your energy matches.
It is.
Like I am, yes. So I am thinking like Fatima 5 Points Gallery, Nikisha Genre Urban Arts, like it was a work thing. Like we met for this conversation around like this exhibition that the museum was doing. And then somehow they have grown into people who like I text weekly about like silly stuff, like when we going roller skating, and also where do I go to get my roller skating class, you know what I mean? Like it just happens organically. And I think that's the sweet thing, like when you go in and you get caught out because they're like people who you vibe with on all the levels. And making friends as an adult could be really hard, but sometimes it feels also really rewarding.
So you have a PhD, correct?
I
Right.
do.
Right. So, what do you have a PhD in? And I don't think I've ever asked anybody this question, but do you think a degree matters?
I Oh, in which order do I want to answer this? Um, so I have a master's, and typically you get a master's, you get a PhD. And I remember after I finished my master's at NYU, I was like visiting a friend of mine in Maryland, and staying with her family, and she's black and her family's black. And I was like, I don't know if I want to like continue and get my PhD. Even though I'm the person who was like, I literally in high school was like, I want to be in school forever. You know what I mean? Um, and her mom who had a PhD and like has gone on to become the president of a university, black woman, and chocolate black, which I think is really important. Her mom said, as a black woman, it never hurts to have more letters behind your name. And so I took that very seriously. I don't think it's true for everyone, but I do think that sometimes the degrees open doors in terms of like the who you're able to meet, like the connections that you're able to make, and like the skills that you're able to build. And those don't need to like be traditional degrees. Like I'm a big advocate of going to like technical schools too. Like I think sometimes you just if it works for you, great. If you have a plan that doesn't require it, great. But I think for me, like I needed it as another way of allowing me into more spaces and doors. Um, Not allowing me, but like trusting my legitimacy and like giving myself the legitimacy that I needed. So my PhD is in performance studies from Northwestern, and essentially performance studies is a new discipline that studies human behavior as performance. And what I focused on was like women and queer identified Haitian artists in the Haitian diaspora. So the diaspora is like people who live outside of Haiti, and how their art was really transformed after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. And how like that earthquake really changed the course of their relationship to Haiti, their relationship to Haitian culture, many of them going back to Haiti for the first time, and how you can see those shifts in their work because of the earthquake, which was really a traumatic and major moment in the Haitian community. And so I think that for me, what the PhD allowed me for was I'm someone who I work best in community, and that includes like my thinking. So I was able to like spend time thinking and like processing what it meant for me to witness the earthquake, and to also acknowledge that I was supposed to be in Haiti at the time of the earthquake, which meant that I would have been in Port-au-Prince in the house that like killed our uncle during that time. But I had like it happened to be that I ended up like tearing something in my knee while playing Cup on Angola, and I needed surgery. And I remember when the earthquake happened being like, okay, universe, now is not my time. So, like, what's the work that I still have to do, right? So that goes again back to values. But for me, the PhD was like space that I needed to process, to think, to work alongside people. It gave me the resources. I went to Northwestern. It gave me the resources to literally connect with other Haitian women artists, and to make my world feel a little bit smaller because, again, I was growing that network. And it also allowed me to like connect to Haitian art and also organize and gather people, which is how I came to invite members of the Milwaukee Art Museum to something that I hosted at Northwestern, which led to them inviting me to like Milwaukee to like check out like the reinstallation of the Haitian collection, which ultimately led to me getting my job in 2015. So I think that if you think about a degree as like a strategic way of building your network and your resources and playing and testing things out, I think that's another way of thinking about that paper.
I like how you said that paper, because I was this earlier out. So I told myself I was gonna hang my degree up when I got my first apartment. So that was about like 2 years ago. So now we're in my second, and I was looking at it. I sort of got today, and I was like, I got a degree, because sometimes you don't even think about it, like, because most times it really is a piece of paper. But then I look back like, God dang, do you know what I did for this piece of paper? For people to think of me as legitimate. And the reason I asked that question is because now that I've been around, have my company for 5 years, and no one ever asks me if I have a degree. And sometimes when I tell people I have a degree, they'll be like, "Oh, wow, you have a degree." So sometimes, like you said, it depends on your journey and
Yeah,
your experiences. But for me, like you said, I feel like I needed to get that degree because I had no experience in journalism. I just knew it
yeah.
was a career eventually. Like, I just knew like there's a reporter, but I didn't know anything about it, how it worked, how to write in that specific way. So I did need to go that route for me specifically. But I always advocate for, do what you feel right for you. Sometimes like degree or going to school isn't right for you, but if you want to go to school, definitely just go hard for whatever you definitely want to go hard for. So I just have honestly two more questions for you. One being, what do you want people to know about Milwaukee? We didn't really necessarily talk about Milwaukee a lot, but you're a curator. You're for the Black community, for the Haitian community. You work at the Milwaukee Art Museum, and you want more of us to be at the art museum itself. Why is it important for the culture of Milwaukee, and specifically the Black culture, to get a spotlight, whether that's at the Milwaukee Art Museum, whether that's in front of like the city itself, but what do you want people to know about the city?
I fell in love with Milwaukee when I moved here, like in 2015. There's like it's like got the best combination of like people with heart, and I'm talking about like the organizers, the people who are doing here just like living and doing the work. It's got like people with heart, people like with strong like organizing, like work ethics and spirit and tied to liberation. Afro American Roundtable, I'm looking at you. It's also got like amazing public lands and parks. Like I
Yeah.
cannot live in a space without rivers. That's just like me, and like these like just like, oh, that's it. Give me water, give me honey. Like I'm here for it. Like I just love me the rivers.
Yes.
And so it's got like natural beauty, it's got people beauty and power, and it's also got like a cultural art scene that is really accessible. You're telling me, wait, what? I can go to all these music concerts and see these amazing local performers, like for how much? Um, and so I fell in love with Milwaukee for all those reasons. And it wasn't until we had our kid and then we moved like to Ohio and Illinois for a little while so I could teach. And I remember coming back like being super nervous for the first time because I was like, but what about the violence? Like, is my daughter gonna be okay? Like, are we gonna be okay? I was like, girl, you ain't never think about this before. And also, I knew like so many Black folks who were raising loving Black children, but I think that I had allowed like that image of Milwaukee to like penetrate my spirit in not helpful ways. And I'm not gonna lie, it is a mess. Like I've had things happen in my neighborhood, so I don't want to say that that violence is not true. And I want to acknowledge like how much beauty is in the city. Like that just you're not expecting it. And like, man, when you like see it, you're like, this is a gem. Like, why don't more people know about it? So that's what I want people to know about Milwaukee. It really is a gem, like in terms of people power, cultural power, and just natural beauty.
Yes, the parks alone are amazing. That's one thing I really do miss about the city is literally the parks. I love that you could just go around any part of the city basically, and we have trails, we have just trees, and they just really designed the park for you to actually really enjoy it without needing to be in your car. And that's what I
Yes.
really enjoy about the city and the water. Like you said, being surrounded by the water and you go dang near anywhere in the state and be surrounded by water is a luxury for sure. So,
Yes.
like all interviews, and specifically for this series, when people rewatch this interview, what do you want them to get from this?
Um, I think I think one of the things that I'm working through is how important it is to mind your values and to continue to reassess your values and how they can show up in your work. And don't be afraid to think about the generations coming after you. Like, so for me, that's like my daughter's daughter's daughter. Um, and I don't mind bringing her up in the room and thinking about her because I think thinking about her makes it less about ego and more about someone else and like really like what kind of world do I want them to inherit. So yeah, centering my values and centering the generations coming after.
Well, we have more people like you. The world is heading in the right direction. So,
You are so sweet.
well, thank you so much. My name is Naisha Stone. This is Carved in Stone, your weekly source of positive news. We're on the 11th episode of CNS IG Live with Positive Black Women. We have Kantara Souffrant, and I love saying that. Have you ever? I know. Please don't get mad, but you ever heard the thing like croissant, and it's like I gotta. I'm gonna send you I'm gonna send you the link. I promise you, I'm gonna email you the link
Naisha,
because it's
you are wild. You are wild.
because it's this video. He be like my croissant, and he be in a movie theater, and I promise you. And that's I was trying not to say it in that tone, but every time I say a last name, that's all I can think about, and I have to send it to you. So.
We did not need this bit.
I'm sorry. You brought it out of me. I'm so sorry.
Send it. Send it. Thank you.
No, but thank you so much, and I really appreciate you. And I'll see y'all next Thursday. All right, see ya.
Bye, Naisha.